Hi everyone, it's Kelly here, your instructor for Exploring Leadership, and I want to give you an introduction to week 5 of the semester. We are continuing on with you and leadership and understanding yourself. So last week you did 2 self-assessments, the Strengths Quest and the Barrett Values Assessment, and did some personal reflection. And this week we are going to do 2 more assessments. One is called the PACE Palette Scorecard, and one is a leadership skills assessment. And you may wonder, why are you doing so many assessments? And some of you might not even really enjoy them or believe in them. But I would like you to do them. I have found that understanding yourself is really critical, not just as a leader, but as a team member and as it's a human in the world. Like, you're going to be living with roommates, you might have a partner in your life, you might have children, you might be in an organization. You are going to be working with others your whole life and relating with them and communicating them. And you're going to have people that you align with really well, and there's going to be people that you have conflict with and really struggle to be in relationship with. And all of these assessments are giving you language and tools to know your preferences, your tendencies, your styles, your talents, so you can really align yourself and you with opportunities to use those, and you can have better information about others and what makes them tick and how you can better collaborate and team up with folks to hopefully create a team where all the strengths and skills and styles are represented for the success of your goals and your team and your organization. So each of you has a unique combination of all of those strengths, skills, talents, styles. And yet, as you might have noticed in the results, there are also categories of people. So there are people that have more strategic thinking strengths. There are people that have more relationship building strengths. As we get into the PACE palette, you'll see that there's categories that are represented by colors and attributes. Because what researchers have found is that although we all are unique, there's common groupings of folks that when we understand tendencies of those groupings, we understand ourselves better and others better. We then have uniquenesses in those categories, but knowing the categories exist is really helpful, and then being able to identify yourself within those categories. The other thing I want to mention is no matter what the assessment is none of us are only one category or one like section of the assessment. We all are made up of multiple. Although when you look at the descriptions, when you get feedback from other people, you will see that you more often than not, have one or two that are your like dominant, like knee jerk. You don't have to think about. That's just how you show up in the morning, how you get through your day, how you respond to an email or to a conflict. That there's some preferences and tendencies that we have. Doesn't mean we can't do some of those other skills and practice some of those other talents. It might just mean that we need to work harder. We might need more concentration. We might need to plan ahead to be adventurous instead of it just spontaneously coming out. So you have the capacity to do it all, but there's generally one or two that show up for you more predominantly. Conflict happens when we show up to do work or be in relationship and we have different styles or different tendencies. We might often say, why doesn't so-and-so do something more like this? Or why didn't they tell me this in advance? Or why don't they make a schedule? Oftentimes when we get frustrated with our others, we're frustrated in comparison to ourselves. Like, basically, why aren't they more like me? Why don't they think about things the way I think about them? Why don't they communicate in the way I think about them? I mean, I was just with my brother this past weekend, and we are so different, and I was so frustrated with him, but he's super spontaneous, and he like goes with the flow, and I really prefer having a schedule and knowing what we're gonna eat for dinner like in advance so I can go to the store. But the way he shows up in our family and for my kids is really beautiful. And so if we can see the strengths in other people, it helps us see them, their humanity, and appreciate them more. And then we can also find out how we can both show up in different ways that supports the whole family. So one quick example. The other thing is that there's so many other ways that this shows up. There's introversion, extroversion, that impacts us in groups. There's also the 5 languages of love, if you're interested in that. The 5 love languages, it's how we demonstrate like care towards others, and we actually have different ways that we do that. I'll put a link later if you're curious about that for relationships. But for now, I want to stop talking and have my picture showing, and I'm going to go to a PowerPoint and give you a little bit of background on the Johari window, about tapping into your unknown potential, and also I want to tell you about the PACE palette. Okay, so what I want to go through is a little presentation called What's Your Piece, and it's about understanding your piece of the puzzle. And this relates to just understanding how you fit into the world, how you fit into family systems, how you fit into groups, how you fit into organizations. And here we go. So the Johari window is a model that was put together by a man named Joe and a man named Harry. I have his name spelled wrong on the below, but they put this together. And so they said that there's things that you know about yourself and others know, and that's considered your open person, like your public persona. There are things that you know about yourself but others don't know, and that they call your blind spot. So what you're not seeing about yourself, or how you show up or don't show up in groups or the world. There are things that you know, but others don't know about you, and that's your private self, or the private person, what you hold inside and don't share. And then there's the unconscious, which is also called your hidden potential. And you don't know that necessarily, and others don't know that because you haven't tapped into it yet. So how do you tap into your unknown potential or your unconscious to make it more visible? There's 2 things. On one hand, there needs to be feedback, or some way of gaining information from what others know about you. So there needs to be a level of respect and a willingness to listen. Also, the interest in knowing. You might ask a close friend, you might ask a colleague, you might ask a supervisor, it could even be a parent or a significant other, that I'm curious what you see in me, or an area for growth, or giving me feedback on my presentation, so forth. It could be any type of feedback. What I want to be specific though is that you're not just taking feedback from anyone. You're taking feedback and judging people's responses to you from people that care about you, that know you, and they truly, genuinely care about your growth. So on the other side, to share more of your open self takes vulnerability. It also takes trust and a willingness to express to others information about yourself that they may not know. You might choose to share some of this information from these self-assessments with the people you work with, or someone you're in a relationship with, or a team that you're on, and they might be like, oh, now I understand more about why you do this or why you don't do that. That's really helpful for me to know. Or you might have something going on in your past or present that is affecting your ability to show up in the workplace or in a relationship. But if you don't share that with the other person, they don't know, and then they're left to make assumptions. So if you put those 2 together, a combination of sharing more about yourself, being vulnerable, trusting others, and sharing personal information, along with asking for feedback and observing others' responses to you, you can lessen your blind spot. You can lessen the private part of yourself. And that is where the open, and I'd like to say the authentic person comes out. And that's where you tap in to your unknown potential there. So that's a big part of what we're doing here is by helping you learn more about yourself is beginning to tap into that unconscious. And so my invitation to you is to share more about what you know about yourself with others and begin asking people for feedback. So you have more of a loop of information and it's just not all inside of you. Okay, so I'm going to transition a little bit into talking about the PACE palette. So in a team or a group setting, there are often times 4 things that are happening somewhat simultaneously. There are tasks that the group or organization is doing or making or producing. There are relationships between colleagues, administration, team members, but how we relate to each other. There are processes that we're following, how we do things, how we communicate, how we make decisions, the way we go about doing our work. And then there's the spirit of the group or the organization, which might also be called organizational culture. Like, how does it feel to be in that group? So all 4 of those things are happening at one time. Your way that you show up in teams, you might be more prone or strong or talented at creating tasks and accomplishing them. You might be highly responsible, orderly, checkbox kind of a person. You might be more relational in that you form really strong relationships with people. You care about how they feel. You want to make sure people feel included. You might be more process oriented and like strategic and like how are we going to do things and why are we going to do things and how do we put together the steps. You might see that in the team or the organization. And maybe you really care about kind of the adventure of the group or how they are together. And, that is a bit about, just bringing the group alive and having fun or bringing out, the special qualities. So all of them are essential and we show up and satisfy these different areas in different ways. So the objective that we are going to do through the PACE palette is look at your style tendencies in a group setting and look at the assets that you bring to a group, how sometimes you can hinder a group, what you need to be engaged in a group setting, and then thinking about what or who you need to leverage your style for success in life. So these 4 groups fit together: the red, blue, green, and yellow. Those are how the PACE palette identifies the group. And you're going to explore what your tendencies are. And I specifically use the word tendency because not everybody that identifies as red and adventurous has the exact same way of showing up in the world, but they tend to show up in certain ways. So this is the PACE palette scorecard that you are going to be doing. I think it might be a little bit off, the screen right here. In fact, let's see. I'm not even actually sure what you're seeing here, but we'll go with it. Anyway, this is a PACE palette scorecard. You'll see that there's 4 columns there, and then there are 5 rows. So each row you're going to take separately, and you're going to look at the grouping of words for each of the boxes in row 1. And the boxes of words that are most like you most of the time, you'll put a 4. And the box of words that's least like you most of the time, you're going to put a 1. And then the middle 2 boxes, you'll add a 2 or a 3, depending on which is more like you or less like you. So in each row, you're going to have a 1, 2, 3, and 4 from least like you to most like you. And again, it's not like you can't be sincere, but maybe more often than not, you're spontaneous than sincere. or maybe that you're more of a planner most of the time, and then some of the time you're more cooperative. So anyway, I'll let you decide that. So at the bottom, each of these columns, you're going to get a number somewhere between 5 and 20, because I think 20 is the highest you can get in these boxes. And then they're going to correspond to these styles. So the red corresponds with adventure, yellow corresponds with responsibility, blue with harmony, and green with curiosity. And in your directions for this week, I tell you which colors go with each column, so make sure you read that. Or if you forget, red is on the left, yellow is the second to the left, blue is second to the right, and green is on the far right. But that's in your instructions for this week. Okay, so to review, we're going to look at what style fits you most. You're going to look at what assets you bring to a group, one way or more that you might hinder a group at times, and what is one thing that you need to be engaged in a group setting, and what or who do you need to leverage your style for success in life. And then I would like you to consider thinking about this in your life, and think about the people that you work and live with. What are their style tendencies? Can you use this diagnostic tool to figure them out? And how can you better appreciate and learn about their style tendencies and use them ideally in a sense to see them, their gifts, and also diffuse conflict? And then lastly, how could you use this like right away? Is there a class project, a club, roommates, or a work team that you can help engage their different style tendencies in a better way? So that is what I wanted to go over. I'm not sure that PowerPoint, how that's going to show up on your screen. I think it was chopped off, but I'm going to go with it. I hope this is helpful for you. A student asked earlier this week, like how long something needed to be, and I definitely have some guidance on that. And my core intention is that this is useful for you, like truly useful, more than just an assignment. I want it to benefit your life. I want it to benefit the folks that you work with. I want it to be a tool that you can use, or tools that you can use in the future. So if you have any questions or concerns, definitely reach out to me, and read the instructions in the module, and you will get to see what we have coming up this week. And I'll be there on Wednesday for office hours from 12:45 to 1:45, but don't hesitate to reach out if you want to set up another time. All right, thanks.